Thanks, folks. Good afternoon. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Rex Minerals. I've got some slides here we're going to go through. I'm going to show you a brief DVD in a minute. It's always interesting to me, whether you come from overseas or you're an Australian, lots of people think that mining projects are a long way from anywhere. So this DVD helps position the project and give you an understanding of where we are. So we start with a map of Australia, we then zoom in to where Hillside is. Hillside is approximately 2 hours drive from Adelaide by sealed road, some 60 kilometres across the water. And that sort of gives you a feel of the proximity that we are to a major capital city, which is one of the advantages that we have. We then bring you into the hillside where the deposit is itself. We own the freehold the land where the mine is. This is how the deposit's situated underground. And we now walk you through the steps that we'll be going to as we open up this deposit. We do get access to ore within 20 metres of the surface. We will start with 3 starter pits. We will then progressively open the pit up to its full size, which is about 2 kilometres by 1 kilometre when it's finished. We position the waste dumps and the storage facilities for you, and again all of those are short haul distances, which is adding to the economics of the project. We now take you from underneath the surface. During the pre-feasibility and certainly into the bankable feasibility phase, which we now are, a lot of work done on understanding also underground development. This deposit is still very much open, both to the north and the south, and that's why we say we have a 15+ year mine life, and we're very confident that's the case. Coming back to the surface of this deposit, walking you to the south end of the mine, we'll then go along the strike length moving north, and we'll start to take you to where the processing plant is. This is a very good representation of the plant. The run-of-mine ore has copper, gold and iron ore within it. Everything will be crushed. We will then grind and float off the copper and gold concentrate. That concentrate, the tailings that comes from that process is iron rich. That will then be further ground down and we will release the iron ore through magnetic separation. And this is a fairly good and accurate representation of how the plant will look. Once we have those 2 concentrates, they will be transferred via slurry pipeline to the port. We're doing that for environmental as well as economic reasons. It's a 12-kilometre slurry pipeline. The pipeline that I ran at One Stirl's Whyalla operations was 65 kilometres. So again, you can see we're very close to where we need to take the material out to shipment. Once we get to the port, we will dewater and wash the concentrates because we will be floating in salt water. We will then have a shed fully sealed to control any dust, and we'll then go by seal conveyor to the existing ship loader. This is the port at Ardrossan. The ship loader does exist. The port is currently capable of moving vessels up to handy size. We will be carrying out some upgrade and that'll potentially get it up to about the 50,000 tonne mark. Port's very much underutilised, currently moves 20 shipments in total per year. With our copper, gold and iron ore concentrates, we'll still only take some 50% of the total port capacity. So it really is very useful and beneficial that our project is so close to an existing port. There is water infrastructure available, but the red pipeline is a pipeline that's currently under construction that will bring additional fresh water to the project. And then when we get to power, there are 2 current infrastructure facilities, 132 kV and 275. We already have commercial offers on the table for power, which is at or better than our PFS. So that just gives you a quick understanding of the project, and for those who have an interest, that is on our website and does come with a commentary. This is a copper project. We have 100% control of the project. We are a debt-free company at this point in time. We will be a project of scale, producing some 70,000 tonnes of copper, and I'll take you through some of the outcomes shortly. We've covered off the location. We did announce in February that we have now an 8-year reserve life, so we've started to move resource with infill drilling to reserve, and we do expect by the end of August to be something close to 12 years of reserve. We certainly have a view about copper going forward. I think it's interesting that if that demand curve is anywhere near accurate, then there are some 140 hillside-sized projects to be built over that period out to 2025 to meet demand. I don't try and predict where demand and supply will be. I do think that at various times you will see supply slightly higher than demand or demand slightly higher than supply, but we do believe that copper has a very strong future just based on normal world growth. We do also see copper grades declining in existing mines and also new mines coming on stream. Copper is getting harder to find. We do expect that demand to increase in line with global growth, and as with all commodities, China will play a significant part. We are seeing increased operating and capital costs for new projects. A significant advantage for Hillside, obviously, where it is situated in relation to Adelaide, and also those infrastructure advantages that I spoke about. So, in summary, we believe that there are lots of reasons why the copper price will remain strong. However, in having said that, we haven't been overly bullish in looking at the financial and economic benefits for Hillside, modelling copper at about $3 a pound. This was a study done by Goldman Sachs, first in March last year and then re-released in September. It mapped the top 60 new or emerging copper projects in the world. So this is very important for us as we are competing for funding with other projects. It maps capital intensity in US dollars per tonne of copper equivalent and operating costs. And we've positioned that purple bubble, which is Hillside. And we're not building a copper gold concentrator cheaper than anybody else. The capital intensity advantage comes from the fact that where we're located, it will be lower cost to build than building in the geographically isolated areas, and obviously that power, port and water infrastructure that already exist. And certainly we get a lot of benefit in terms of our C1 cash cost, which is net of byproduct credits, because of the iron ore byproduct credit that we get, and I'll talk to that a little bit further in a minute. In terms of this project, we do have grades and an ore body that can be economically mined. I've heard lots of comments and conversations since I joined the organisation in October that talks about 3 lens-like ore bodies, that talks about copper grades being on the lower side of average compared to history, but not certainly compared to new and developing mines. But I do point to the fact that if it had been a more homogeneous ore body, if the grades would be higher, we would simply have a higher production profile at a lower cost. So the outputs that we give you, the economics that we point to, is all in reference to the ore body that we have, and we understand that ore body very well. Our ore body has been audited by the chairman of the JORC Compliance Committee, Peter Stoker, twice, and that is being done for a 3rd time this year, and we keep getting that done because we've been increasing our resource going forward, and we're now moving into reserve thanks to infill drilling. The iron ore is a valuable byproduct, but also a compelling investment. For approximately $120 million of incremental capital, we make a magnetic concentrator which will remove the iron-rich particles from the tailings. We will be making something in the order of 1.2 million tonnes of iron ore a year at 68% Fe or better, low impurities, and at a free on board cost of $40 a tonne. That in itself has a payback of something approaching 2 years, and that's why we say it's compelling. And when it comes to funding, which is now the major part of our story, we have multiple options. There will certainly be a significant proportion of debt going into this project, and we've already got indications of something between $500 and $600 million. We are very confident that we will have a fixed price EPC contract, and the estimates on the table to date are at the low end of our capital estimates, and that was one of the reasons between November when the PFS was announced and today, we have said that our capital will be less than the $900 million that we originally anticipated, and we think total funding will now be in the order of $800 to $850 million. We've also then got people who are looking to take a strategic position in the company at a significant premium to current price. We've got people who are seeking to take the iron ore only office in terms of offtake, and we've certainly got a lot of players looking at how they get access to our offtake for the full 15 years. So we're very confident that over the course of this calendar year, we will start to put in place some of those funding pieces, and we expect to be fully funded by the end of the year. This is the ore body, and you can see the drill holes there. We've got over 750 drill holes That continues to increase as we move to do infill drilling and get to reserve, some 230,000 metres drilled. So to the extent that there is 3 lens bodies in here, to the extent that some people say it's a complex ore body, we understand it well. We understand how we will mine it, and we have been prudently conservative in ensuring that we meet JORC compliance standards, including fully diluting our mine plan as we start to access this ore body. We've had strong growth in resource going back from July 2010 to today, and we think it's a very important milestone to move to now having more reserve. That will help us with our loan and our tenure. And even at 8 years reserve, when you look at the current producers, we already have one of the largest open cut reserve lives. And when we get to the 12-year reserve by the end of the year, which will help with loan tenure, we will have the largest reserve of any of the current producers in Australia. So a very important milestone. This is a copper project. 70,000 tonnes a year of copper, 50,000 ounces a year of gold, and 1.2 million tonnes of iron ore, as I said. We are well positioned on the iron ore cost curve. I understand and know magnetite economics well, given that I was responsible for developing Project Magnet at One Steel, now Arium's operations at Whyalla. And I can tell you that if the cash cost gets below $40 a tonne, then BHP and Rio and others won't be doing very well. So we're very confident that we're not over-capitalising to access that iron ore that's in the tailings, and we do sit well in terms of the byproduct credits. Once we get funding, people are going to say, we won't do it on time, we won't do it on budget, and the plant won't do what it's supposed to do. I think there's a number of lessons that I've learned over my career that I would point to. You've got to have enough test work so that you can start to understand how your ore body is going to come out of the ground, how it's going to present, and how it will process. And we are now well beyond our 3rd round of locked-in cycle testing as we move to close out the BFS. You need to make sure your scope and your design is locked in and that it comes from the base principles and test work. And we have now locked in our design. We are now working through P&IDs, general arrangement drawings, and by the end of this month we will have also made concentrate through a pilot plant. And that will give our EPC bidders sufficient work, sufficient information to give us a locked-in price in terms of them bidding to us by the end of September. I think ideally you should always give preference to lower technical risk. This is very much conventional technology and a conventional flowchart. In fact, anybody who's been to Xstrata, now Glencore's Ernest Henry plant in Queensland, this is a very similar plant and process. We do have competitive tensions for the EPC contract, and we have been engaging with multiple parties now for many months, and we're getting to the point where we want to start to shortlist our preferred tenders. I think when somebody's building the plant for you, you need to make sure you've got aligned values and goals, and our EPC contract, which also includes Chinese companies who are teamed up with Australian EPC contractors, are bringing with that construction finance. And that has a mutual obligation, them to us in terms of what they're going to build and what cost, and them to the banks who they bring with them for financing in terms of they will build it for that cost. We do have a qualified and experienced team, although it is fair to say we will continue to build that as we work through funding. And I think the other benefit we're seeing, particularly in the Australian market, there's heat coming out of the market. There's not a lot of the resource projects now are slowed or being deferred, but also long lead time items are actually coming in, which is always a good lead indicator to pricing going forward. Financing certainly provides a prize. This is a diagram most of you will have seen. There's always a lot of excitement when companies find a good drill hole. Adelaide Resources several weeks ago found 2 drill holes and went to our market cap in a day. Once you then say you've got to develop something and you've got to raise finance, the share price goes down, and we're sitting just below 30 cents at the moment. We've been over $3 before. But certainly as we get into production, we'd expect the value of the company to reflect the profit and cash flows going forward. And by way of example, if you can compare Sandfire, Oz Minerals and Panost and look at their market cap, they're sitting at $20,000 to $24,000 per tonne of output. On the same measure, Rex is valued at about $2,000. Now, I'm not going to say we're going to get a 10 times uplift in our share price, but it does give you a clear view of the fact that the value in this company is very much not recognised, but I do fully understand that funding is the only way that that's going to become recognised. So the past 4 years have certainly created significant value, and there's a lot of things that have been done. Rex is a company that delivers on its promises and commitments. We've certainly got a lot of work to do in the next 12 months, but for us that focus is very much around funding, putting in place parts of that funding and releasing that information to the market as soon as possible so that people understand that this is a project that will be funded, that we will be producing from the last quarter of calendar 2015, and that we do have a very strong life in front of us in terms of a 15-year mine life. And outside of that, within our existing exploration licence, there are 50 highly prospective targets that we will start to aggressively look at as we get through funding and start to build the plant. And all of those don't have to turn up another hillside, but if we can find something that simply funds its own cutback, that simply funds a haul road into Hillside, we can increase the life at Hillside, we can potentially bring in higher grade and or reduce the costs. So we think we're in a very good position as we move forward. Thank you.